Hey, good morning. Today is Monday, April the 1st, 2024. The time now is 7:11 a.m. So, yesterday I was looking for articles on the internet, okay, pertaining to the situation in Senegal. So I was conducting research and I was able to find an article on French 24 news site. While looking through the articles, I noticed that there was an article on French 24 which is about a Liberian citizen who is now 49 years old. His name is Kunti Kamara, who was handed a 30-year sentence in France, in a French court. And I thought it was very important, very significant, or interesting, given the situation that is even happening in Liberia, such as the attempt by many in Liberia to establish an economic and a war crimes court. But this is very much interesting because you have a Liberian citizen who is being handed a 30-year sentence by a foreign entity, a foreign government, or a foreign institutions pertaining to this person's participation in the Liberian Civil War. Okay, his war crime during the Liberian Civil War. So the article is very short. It's a very short article, and it's something that I've noticed recently. For some reason, the articles that are on the news sites are much shorter than the articles in the newspaper sites. So what I'm going to do, I am going to read the article, and then I'm going to provide my feedback and also pose some question. Now, I do want to stress first that I am not an expert. I am just an African man, a young man with an opinion, and I want to share with the rest of the world because I've been afraid that I may say something that people or governments or institutions out there may not like. I have been very much afraid to speak, okay, to come on social media or engage in the talks that I'm engaging with you guys, with you watching. But yes, so I'm going to read the article. I am going to offer a perspective, and also I am going to pose question. What I think this article and the reality behind this article symbolize is power, the assertion of power by a powerful country over a citizen of a powerless country. So I am going to read the article. So I got the article yesterday off the French 24 website. And the article is basically dated the 28th of March 2024. So it is a recent article, which is about 3 days old. The article's title reads French court hands former Liberian rebel commander 30-year jail sentence. Once again, I'm going to read the article's title. The article's title reads French court hands former Liberian rebel commander 30-year jail sentence. A French court on Wednesday handed former Liberian rebel commander Kunti Kamara a 30-year prison sentence for violence against civilians and complicity in crimes against humanity during Liberia's first civil war. Continue. Kamara, now 49, had been sentenced to life in prison during a first trial in Paris in 2022. The Paris Criminal Court, after an appeal trial that lasted 3 weeks, upheld a guilty verdict against Kamara for acts, quote, for acts of torture and inhumane barbarity, unquote, against civilians between 1993 and 1994, including a teacher whose heart he reportedly ate. Continue. He was again found guilty of complicity in crimes against humanity for not preventing soldiers under his command from repeatedly raping two teenage girls in 1994. The prosecution had on Monday urged the court to uphold his life sentence. The allegation against Kamara dated back to the early years of the back-to-back conflicts that would ultimately kill 250,000 people in the West African nation between 1989 and 2003. The fighting was marked by mass murders, rape, and mutilations, in many cases by child soldiers conscripted by warlords, with atrocities against civilians common. Kamara was a regional commander of the United Liberation Movement of Liberia for Democracy, ULIMO, a rebel group that fought the National Patriotic Front of ex-President Charles Taylor. The case against Kamara was initially brought by the Crimes Against Humanity Division of the Paris Criminal Court after he was arrested in France in 2018. It was set up in 2012 to try suspected perpetrators of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide detained on French soil, irrespective of where their alleged crimes were committed. Okay, interesting. Does this mean that the French crimes court or the French government will apprehend and try French citizens who commit crimes in other regions around the world? And I mean, will the French government or the French courts do so not based on the recommendation of outside institutions, but based on its own will, if it's going to propagate the notion that it is doing such thing to carry out justice around the world? I'm going to continue. It was the first case taken by the unit that was not related to the 1994 Rwanda genocide. Sabrina Delattre, lawyer for the NGO Civitas Maxima, and 8 Liberian civil parties, on Wednesday said that it was important for the victims and the civil parties who for the second time have been heard and believed. Unquote. She said they had been able to, quote, obtain the justice they had not obtained in their country, unquote. So far, only a handful of people have been convicted in Liberia itself for their parts in the brutal wars. A motion was approved this month to set up a long-awaited war crimes court, seen as the first step towards trying perpetrators of human rights violation. So that is the end of the article. So it is a very interesting article. Okay? So Kunti Kamara is a Liberian citizen, and he was handed a 30-year prison sentence for violence against civilians and complicity in crimes against humanity during the Liberian Civil War. So Mr. Kamara is now 49 years old. So if I was to begin in 2000, from 2000 to now, 2024, it is about 23, 24 years. So which means during the time of the Liberian Civil War, he was at least 26 years old or less than 26 years old. So he was an adult. But also I do believe, and I've said many times, I know many may come at me, but the Liberian Civil War was a unique experience for the Liberian people, for all of us. Whether those of us Liberians who grew up experiencing the atrocities, or those of us Liberians who were lucky enough to leave the country, okay? At the time, Liberia has roughly 2 million people. 250,000 to 300,000 Liberians lost their lives during the Civil War. A million left the country, and the rest fought for their lives in the country. So we are all victims. I do believe that. Whether we were the perpetrators or the victim, we were all victims. In fact, the situation in Liberia currently, in terms of the politics, the way the politics is being practiced in Liberia, I did not live during the years before the Civil War, but for many who have stress, it bears semblance to those era. And I do believe Liberia, we need to be very careful to not carry the country back to the years before the Civil War. Now, what I think this article symbolizes is power. It is about power, not about justice. Because if Kunti Kamara was actually a commander fighting under the United Liberation Movement of Liberia for Democracy, or ULIMO, fighting against Charles Taylor National Patriotic Front, okay? If this actually happened, people could easily, looking at the current narrative out there about Charles Taylor, him being the criminal, took war to Liberia and this and that, then it could easily be argued by many that this guy, if Charles Taylor was that bad, and he was, Kunti Kamara was a hero then. Many may say that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, what this signify, okay? Him being put on trial by a foreign government, okay? Mr. Kamara being put on trial in a foreign country by a foreign court signifies or exemplifies the assertion of power, the presentation of power by the powerful. I want to also pose some question. Let me read the article again, parts of the article. This part states or reads, the case against Kamara was initially brought by the Crimes Against Humanity Division of the Paris Criminal Court after he was arrested in Paris in 2018. It was set up in 2012 to try suspected perpetrators of war crime, crimes against humanity, and genocide detained on French soil, irrespective of where their alleged crimes were committed. Now, I asked earlier, will the French government and French legal system go after French citizens who commit crimes in foreign country? And if so, what crimes are they going to prosecute their citizens on? And on what base? Also, if you look at the situation in Ukraine, I remember once again Russia attacked or invaded Ukraine in February 24th, 2022. Now, by April, Ukraine and Russia was about to sign an agreement to end the war in Turkey. And Boris Johnson, okay, then Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, went to Ukraine and persuaded the Ukrainians not to engage in peace talk. Today, we see what's happening in Ukraine. Ukraine is being destroyed. Many people, thousands of people have died in Ukraine, okay, in terms of civilians. Both Russians and Ukrainian soldiers have died. But I'm not going to talk about the soldiers. Let's talk about civilians. In this case, can we then say people like Boris Johnson, by preventing the end of the war, was complicit in the continuation of a war that has led to the death of thousands of Ukrainians? I want to put that there. Now, I am not an expert in geopolitics, and I'm not an expert in international law. I'm just a man with an opinion, and I want to share my opinions with the rest of the global community. And I'm saying this because the manner in which Western governments, Western legal authorities, Western institutions are going against or going after countries and people around the world, it is very, I believe, it's very suspicious. Okay? And it is also very unfair. We have an international legal system that is often perpetrated or presented by the Western government and Western institutions and leaders as the sole authority of global justice. Meanwhile, this institution is only going after African leaders and others in the global south. And Westerners who are committing war crimes are getting away with their crimes. Now, I want to pose a couple of questions. One being that since the French court has taken it upon itself, okay, going after people around the world who allegedly committed crimes, okay, people who are on French soil who committed crime wherever in the world. So if that's the case, will the French court go after people who are French citizens, who are citizens of European countries, especially powerful European countries? Will the French court go after them? Because honestly, we are seeing a Western legal system or a Western, quote unquote, internationally based system that is only going after African perpetrators of crimes, okay, or people around the world in poor, powerless countries who commit crime. We have, for example, King Leopold, who is said to have killed between 10, 15, 20, 25 million African people in the Congo, depending on the source. Okay? Many predictions out there or estimates out there about the number of people who died in the Congos resulting from King Leopold's actions. Yes, he is dead. He has been dead how many decades or for over a century. Okay. Yes, he's been dead, but will they bring him to trial based on his actions, his history? Another question. Will people like Nicolas Sarkozy be brought to justice, to trial? Because under Sarkozy, France participated in the situation, in the civil war in Libya. Libya got destabilized. You have situation in Libya where black Africans are being brutalized. France participated in the situation in Libya, which destabilized the Sahel region. Many Africans have lost their lives because of a destabilization campaign which French carried out in Libya. Should Nicolas Sarkozy be brought to trial? Because if that's the case, we need to ask, what does complicity means? Not just in terms of the literal definitions as is stated in the various dictionaries out there, but complicity in terms of the practicality of international system, of the international justice. What does complicity mean? Does complicity means going out and killing civilians, watching civilians die, or going to a country where two countries engaging in war are trying to make peace and preventing peace from happening and the prolongation of war to happen? Should we consider that as complicity? Okay? What does complicity means in this case? French leaders and Western leaders who, during the era of decolonization in Africa, who brutalized Africans, who did whatever they can and gave orders for their colonial militaries to brutalize Africans. Yes, they may have long dead and gone, but based on their actions, should we bring them to justice? Because I do believe what seems to be happening, it seems, I won't say witch hunt, but it seems that we are having a legal system in a powerful country that is very much zealous and wants to achieve something, want to make themselves relevant. And the easiest way to do it is to go after Africans, citizens, leaders from weak or weaker countries who, quote unquote, were perpetrators of crimes. Because in this case, it is much easier to get a verdict against these perpetrators than it will be to go after leaders, civilians, and institutions in a powerful country. I do think in the future, the rest of the world, many countries now that are powerless and weak, will become powerful and strong. And they will take it upon themselves to carry out international justice. But the fear is that we could see in the future Western governments, Western countries going to war because other countries around the world, most especially in the global south, are arresting their citizens or their leaders and trying their citizens or their leaders. Because what's happening right now, the fact that the French court has handed the fact that the French court has handed a 30-year sentence to a Liberian, a foreign citizen who quote unquote committed war crimes or crimes against humanity. Had he been a French citizen, a citizen of the United Kingdom, a citizen of the United States, he wouldn't have been treated in such manner. He wouldn't have been even arrested. There are citizens from Western countries committing crimes all over the world and getting away with it. It seems as if the West doesn't want a Western citizen being put on trial in a foreign country. That image, the West doesn't want such image to be seen around the world. Meanwhile, Western government and institutions, in this case, a French government or a French institution of law, is basically going after a Liberian citizen. I'm not saying that it is wrong, but I'm saying in terms of the symbolism of Europeans, foreigners, foreign entities, foreign institutions going after Africans and trialing and putting Africans in jail. That image symbolically is painful for Africans in the long term. I think it's something that we need to be very mindful of. It stated the quote unquote long awaited war crimes court in Liberia. We do not need a war crimes court in Liberia. Liberia, once again, I will say, those who committed crimes during the war need to come back forth to the people, disclose their crimes, ask for forgiveness, and the Liberian nation, the Liberian people, must be willing to forgive them. We need to move on. Okay? We do not have to, and we should not forget our history. But we, as of now, when Liberia is fragile, we do not want to create a situation in Liberia which could lead to destabilization. Because when that destabilization happens, the possibility that country like France will want to send troops to Liberia with the justification that they are going to keep peace, okay, or carry out peacekeeping mission, while the main plan is to occupy Liberia, to basically implant on Liberian soil a military base permanently. It's a reality that we must consider as Liberia. But going after, quote unquote, going after those people who committed war crime could lead to destabilization in Liberia, which in the long term will not be good for us. But I want to stress before I end this talk that I do feel as if the French court going after Kunti Kamara and reality of this sort, which has happened for the past few years of my life since I've been alive. I'm talking about the reality of Western institutions going after Africa or Africans. It's not right, okay? Which in itself is unfair. I went to Liberia in 2017, and I also went back to Liberia in 2019. And I remember when I was in Liberia, COVID, okay, the coronavirus was just becoming an issue. In fact, I was in Liberia hearing news about a virus that was spreading rapidly in China. That was in 2019. And the fact that this video is about Liberia, okay, a Liberian citizen who, quote unquote, was a perpetrator of crimes or crimes against humanity during the Liberian Civil War is very interesting because my being out of Liberia is the result of our civil war. I've said many times we had a 36 years turbulence, of which 14 years were years of all-out war in Liberia. So today is an anniversary for me because it marks the day when I was officially out of Liberia. Peace.